Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way, and I came across this story about a Canadian health expert who claimed to be an Indigenous person when it was absolutely false. I had to laugh. Just amazing that someone would actually do that kind of thing. And generally it's people from the left that does that. She's an academic, so of course they're all mostly left-wing. Well, it doesn't really say, I guess I can't really say that. But anyway, before we start, if you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. And if you like my content, please subscribe as well. It just helps YouTube to find my content. So let's have a look at this article. Canada's Indigenous health expert Carrie Bourassa loses job when her ancestry claims prove false. Oh dear, so what did she do? A Canadian medical researcher who rose to become the nation's top voice on Indigenous health. So she faked her Indigenousness, and because of that she became the top voice on Indigenous health. You've seen this all the left-wing variety, right? The amount of white left-wingers in the BLM movement who disproportionately disadvantage the black people by burning down their communities and so on is just ridiculous. So she's the same thing, right? Some do-gooder white person probably trying to put her views on Indigenous people when she's not Indigenous herself. Anyway, she rose to be the nation's top voice on Indigenous health, has been ousted from her government job and her university professorship, awesome, after suspicious colleagues investigated her increasingly fanciful claims of Native American heritage and learned she was a fraud. Carrie Bourassa, a public health expert who serves as scientific director of the Canadian Institutes of Health, Researchers Institute of Indigenous Peoples Health, was suspended on November 1, 5 days after the state-owned Canadian Broadcasting Corporation published a lengthy expose on her background. Very good. Far from being a member of the Métis Nation, or Métis Nation, I think. Apologies if I pronounce that incorrectly. As she had long claimed, a laborious trace of Bourassa's family tree revealed that her supposedly Indigenous ancestors were in fact immigrant farmers who hailed from Russia, Poland and Czechoslovakia. This is too good to be true. It makes you feel sick, said Janet Smiley, a Metis professor at the University of Toronto who worked with Bourassa on a book about Indigenous parenting. To have an imposter who speaks on behalf of Metis and Indigenous people to the country about literally what it means to be Metis, that's very disturbing, upsetting and harmful. What absolutely disgusting behaviour by this person who has no shame. Here she is in her native garb, well not her native garb, but native garb of the Metis Nation. Colleagues began to doubt Bourassa's story as she began to add claims of Anishinaabe and Tlingit heritage to her tale, and took to dressing in stereotypically Indigenous fashion. So she was culturally appropriating all these things. If you try too hard, then it probably means that you're not one of them, right? Do you remember the Canadian president or prime minister, whatever his name, when he went to India, he was wearing all of those Indian cuff knees and trying to look Indian as much as possible, and the people of India just hated it because it was just as if he was trying to do that just to carry favour with them. Just dress normally, right? It's just ridiculous. It started to unravel in 2019 when she appeared in full tribal regalia, draped in an electric blue shawl with a feather in her partially braided hair, to give a TEDx talk at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. My name is Morningstar Bear, she said tearfully as the crowd cheered. I am Bear Clan. I am Anishinaabe Metis from Treaty 4 territory, she proclaimed as she described an impoverished childhood beset by violence. But colleagues at university where Bourassa held professorship smelled a rat. Yep, because she was trying too hard. We saw that TEDx. To be quite honest, I was repulsed by how hard she was working to pass herself as Indigenous, said Winona Wheeler, an Associate Professor of Indigenous Studies at the college. Wheeler, a documented member of Manitoba's Fisher River Cree Nation, started digging into Baroussa's genealogical records and took her findings to the media. But when pressed to provide evidence of Native American heritage, Baroussa suddenly changed her story, saying that she had been adopted into the Metis community by an unnamed Metis friend of her deceased grandfather, Clifford LaRoque. Even though Clifford passed, those bonds are even deeper than death because the family has taken me as if I was their blood family, she insisted in a statement. In turn, I serve the Metis community to the best of my ability. Well, that's fine. Why don't you just say that at the very start, rather than saying that you had Metis blood in your heritage? The case is drawing comparisons to that of Rachel Dolezal, the white woman who claimed to be black as president of a local branch of the NAACP, and to also Senator Elizabeth Warren, who claimed Native American ancestry on the strength of family law and her high cheekbones. No actual evidence at all. These left-wing people are nutters. Seriously, why is it them that actually do this kind of stuff? Right? They go on about cultural appropriation, and they themselves are the ones that are actually doing it and blaming other people instead. What ridiculous. Anyway, I thought this was a very light-hearted article that would be nice to make a video under, so I hope you enjoyed this particular video. Again, if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. And if you like my content, please subscribe, as it just helps YouTube to notice my content. And hopefully I'll catch you in the next video.